Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Taste of Transformation podcast. If you like what you hear, please share with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and all podcast platforms at Taste of Transformation for more episodes like this. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or know of someone who would be a good guest, please reach out to us at tasteoftransformation@gmail.com. Enjoy this episode. Hi, I'm Charles Lewis, and welcome to Taste of Transformation. Our podcast interviews individuals who have been impacted by the criminal legal system and are living successful lives. Our guests share their stories of challenge and triumphs. They discuss their transformative journey, and they give us tools and insights on how they and we can change and improve our lives. My guest today is Jose Pineda. Jose Pineda. Now, I'm going to read off his introduction because it's full. It's a lot, and I don't want to miss anything. So, Jose is a former prisoner dedicated to promoting higher education in prisons and creating opportunities for healing after incarceration. He spent 21 years in 20 different jails in New York. And while in prison, Jose participated in various education programs such as Cornell Prison Education, the Rise and Hope, Bard Prison Initiative, and the New York Theological Seminary. After his release from prison in 2020, Jose was hired by the State University of New York as the Assistant Director of Higher Education in Prison. He now oversees 14 SUNY campuses and 23 prisons across the state. Jose also volunteers at the Green Correctional Facility, co-teaching a college experience course for first-year students. And Jose is passionate about restorative and transformative justice, being a co-founder of a community-based organization called After Incarceration, which aims to reclaim individual and collective humanity through indigenous practices and emerging strategies. Welcome, Jose.
Well, thank you for having me, man. It's good to be in community with you again.
Yeah, same. Before we get into our stories, we're going to have to taste the food, and I'm going to need your honest opinion. What I should have said in the beginning was we have our discussions over meals that we cooked on the inside. So I actually was the meal, and once again, it was Jack Mac. And so I made some rice, some Spanish rice, and some beans, but I messed up. I put olives in the rice. But I still want you to try it out, give your honest opinion on it. And we got the whole shebang. We got the whole shebang here, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody who was locked up knows about the whole shebang. So let's dig in real quick. Jose also brought us some honey buns, which is a big deal on the inside, and these gourmet jelly rolls.
First thing I'm going to say is I would have much preferred a spoon. All right. This process would have been a little bit faster had I had the utensil that would have let me shovel the food in my mouth the way I did when I was in prison. Because there's no way I would have ate my food the way that I just did while I was in prison. And that's the thing that I was thinking about as I was eating this. I was thinking about how conscious I've become of the way that I consume food. And how when I was in prison, I would throw down as much food as I can as often as I could. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And when I got a good meal like this in jail, I would have demolished half of it immediately and then slid it to the side and be like, that's for later on tonight. Yeah. You feel me? So but I was sitting here like, let me taste this. And I'm like, all right, the rice, a little hard. Right? Flavor's good, though. I said to myself, I'm thinking, he did the kind thing and realized I don't like olives, so it looks like he may have picked the olives out of my rice. That's what my peoples would have done inside if they'd have made rice and then realized I ain't like olives. They'd have made their best to scoop out rice with as little olives as possible. I don't know if you did that or not, but it looked like you did.
I tried to not put as much. If you look at my plate, you see I got like 4 or 5 olives.
Which is why I thought you intentionally maybe either took the olives from me for yourself. And you're like, you don't like olives, right? And I'm like, that was a really leading conversation, but it was correct. But so that's why I ate the rice a couple more times. I wanted to give it another try because I know that you wanted me to try it. It's enough to take the rice, to take the olives out. You feel me? The mac is good. what I say about the one thing I always remember about mac is that if you put it in the bowl and let it steam, it softens up. And I imagine that if this thing came right out the hot pot, frying and crispy, that thing was crispy. Right? That's what I was tasting on. I was like imagining in my mind, I was infusing the food with the crunch that the steam had taken away, because I knew it was there before it got put into a bowl and transferred from one place to another. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this is good mac. I wasn't sure what you flavored it with. You offered that information. I didn't have to ask. I was thinking about it. The beans are good, but they're cold. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we sitting here getting ready to do this. Like, I feel like we should, I would have rather if we just ate and then came and talked. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Then my beans wouldn't have been cold.
All right.
But let me say something else about the beans, because that's the part with the beans are great. Just like, I love the beans. They're great.
So the beans are cold. I mean, in prepping for the interview, warmed it up, put it in front of him, and I told him, like, yo, you can't eat
He told me not to eat.
So the beans has been sitting here for like 7 to 10 minutes. But you're going to put me on blast.
No, because they told me they can edit anything out and I can go back and say something over. So
Bro, they're not going to edit that out. Everybody's going to love this part. They're not editing that out. I promise you that.
Okay. Well,
just letting y'all know I can cook.
No,
it was cold.
The food tastes good. It does meet standards. This is a meal that I would have been thrilled to eat while I was in prison. And so, like, that's another reason why I wanted Jack Mac, right? Because what I've come to remember is that I was, like, fulfilled in ways that I felt satisfied with such menial, like, I felt fulfilled, at least with food, with so limited options as to what I can eat. And we would say, like, Jack Mac? Everybody wants Jack Mac. Well, you know what? Like, that was the one thing that you was like actually eating a piece of fish rather than something that was like processed spam or like, and so I feel that it's good for us to like remember that we can be sustained off of something that I remember my grandfather, when I told him I ate Jack Mac, my grandfather said, "What?" He said, "That's cat food." You said that's the shit we give to the cats and the shit we use to fish. So in Florida, they use Jack Mac as bait, not in the canned Jack Mac. It's actually the fish. But he's like, Jack Mac, he's like, people eat that? He literally thought I was in prison eating animal food. You feel me? Yeah. Like, but for us, it was like, that was TGI Fridays. You feel me? We was good.
I looked forward to coming back from whether it was the yard, from the library, and then coming back and knowing that like I have a meal that I cooked or one of my homies cooked. It was just like, I guess the equivalent to when folks come home and they sit at the table with the family. That's what it was for me. Like I looked forward to it and I just generally enjoyed the meal. So I'm glad, other than the hard rice and the cold beans with the olives.
But the mac is banging though. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? And truth be told, in prison, if you made this meal, what is the one thing you could not fuck up?
The mac.
If you fuck up the mac, everybody's mad.
Yeah.
The rice is hard, nobody cares.
Yeah.
The beans are cold, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You fuck up the mac, everybody feels like I wasted that $2.67 on the fucking can of mac. Like, why did you let him cook?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You should have just did it yourself, kind of thing. You feel me? Yep. But the mac is banging.
So
I
I'm
appreciate
glad you enjoyed it.
I
Absolutely.
do.
I appreciate you for this honey bun. I haven't had honey buns in years.
Well, the original plan was to bring a Louisiana crunch cake. I bought it 2 days ago.
You ate it.
I ate it 2 days ago. So it was the whole cake. I ate that shit in 24 hours. Not at one time, but every time I walked into the kitchen, it called me. You feel me? Every single time.
You shouldn't even told me about the Louisiana crunch cake, bro. Like, you shouldn't even told me that story.
We used to gamble for those. That's it. So I was a big gambler in prison. And so what like me and my friends used to do is we used to gamble for cheese danishes and for the Louisiana crunch cake, whatever the Entenmann's was on commissary.
Yeah.
So we gamble all week and we'd be like, You be owing somebody a cheesy wheezy. You be mad because that meant that you wasn't getting a can of Mac, which meant that you wasn't putting in on that meal that your mans and them was gonna be making later in the week. Because you had to cough up that Louisiana crunch cake. You know what I mean? But anyway, so that's food.
I want to start with, your story is interesting. I didn't get the whole thing because you started telling me, and I was like, stop, because I want you to share it for the show. Your first time you was incarcerated, you was 12 years old. Tell us about your journey. Start, middle, and then ending where you are now. Whatever you feel comfortable with sharing while I eat this Jack, man.
Got you. Let me think about like where to start. Like you gave us as a jumping off point. I see you got the picture up there.
Yeah.
Right? That's my first mug shot. I was 12 years old. Ironically, when I was arrested 7 years later as an adult, I pretty much looked the same way at 19 years old. Like I went to Sing Sing at like 120 pounds. I was still 19. I was 120 pounds. And I like looked like I was 15 years old. And
that must have been crazy.
I was scared to death because all I had ever heard was stories about what prison was like.
Yeah.
And what I did not really reconcile with for a long time is how much of my behavior during the initial part of my sentence, how much of my behavior was determined on making sure I did not get raped. Because I really believed that at any moment I was at risk of sexual harm from one of these big, scary predators that's basically what I had been taught to look at people as too, as predators, and like people who are never going home in prison. Like I'm this frail little white kid who don't speak Spanish, even though you got a Spanish name. Nobody wants to protect me. You know what I'm saying? Like so circle that back to the 12-year-old me, right? My first introduction to the system was through family court and through I was deemed a person in need of supervision at the age of 12 years old. Okay. A person in need of supervision. So I went from being a 12-year-old kid to a full-grown person at 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And it was because I had stopped going to school. Even though I was one of the brightest kids in my school, right? I would like in second grade or third grade, whenever they do the statewide testing, like I literally scored in the 99.9 percentile as a child, meaning that I scored better than 99.9% of every kid in the state that had taken the test. Right. But school was always really challenging for me because I had like probably the precursor to ADD. It was like ADD before it became ADHD. Okay. But before anybody even called it ADD, it was just a kid that couldn't sit still because the teacher was teaching too slow. You know what I'm saying? And so at some point I gave up on school. There's a narrative behind that as well if you want to ask about it. But I stopped going to school in the 7th grade. Okay. And when you stop going to school in New York State, the state steps in because they say that your parents aren't doing their job. So if the parent can't make you go to school, that's when the state will recognize that there's an issue in the household with the child. And more often than not, their resolution is to remove the child from the home and place them into some type of residential area where the schooling is on the campus, basically. Okay. You know what I mean? So
they removed you from your parents because you weren't going to school.
Yeah.
At 12 years old. And then they put you in a residential.
So I went to, I started in a foster home. So they took me from my mother, put me in a foster home. Then from the foster home, I went to a group home, but it was non-secure. So I was like, I ain't fucking staying here. You know what I'm saying? Like I call somebody up, bang, I'm back down in the Bronx. I'm just leaving. So in doing that, they transferred me to a secured facility, because you always get caught. I'm 13 years old, running around. I got no place to stay or nothing. It's like inevitable. I can run away for like a week, but inevitably I'm going to get caught. And so like then they put me in a secured like medium kind of secure facility where you're not allowed to leave, but there's not really fences. The thing is, it was in the middle of nowhere, which I learned
the hard way.
Oh my God, man. I hooked up with some kids from Newburgh, man. Chaz Zachary, man. This was my brother over there. We were in Pies 12 in Warwick, New York, or Chester, New York, matter of fact. Pies 12. Currently, it's since then been shut down for all of the reasons it should have been shut down. Like all of the abuse and neglect and harm that was happening there is like came to a light at some time in the early 2000s, and they shut it down.
And this is a facility for kids.
Yeah, so it's like a non-secure detention for youth at the time. So then it was like, if I kept fucking up over there, they were gonna send me to Highland or Goshen, one of the places that got walls and looks like a prison. Instead, I was like living in a cottage, and they had the high school on the campus. After a while, like it was rough, but like once I kind of like made my bones with the people that I was living with, because it was really hard being like the only white kid there. You know what I'm saying? This is when and I grew up in a neighborhood in the Bronx that was predominantly white. It was Irish immigrant. There was like, my friend group was like the only integrated group of people you would ever see in my neighborhood growing up. You know what I'm saying? And that's like, we had one black kid that lived in our neighborhood, one Puerto Rican kid, one Ecuadorian kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then I went to the group home. Everybody's black. Everybody's from Queens and Brooklyn. I'm from the North Bronx. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All the Latinos from Washington Heights and all of that. They're like, you don't speak Spanish? We ain't fucking with you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like, it was rough for like 6 months. No joke. I got into a fight every single day for 6 months.
Just because you was the white kid on the block.
Just because I was one that I didn't have any protection. You know what I'm saying? Like there was nobody to help me but me, and I was prey basically. It was like somebody that you can fuck with and not have to worry about getting hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I was scrawny, I was little. And the kids in DFY was big. They was like grown-ups.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Coming here trying to take my juice. I'm like, no, man. Like, no, you're not getting my cookies. I know how it's going down. I know what's going to happen, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not giving it to you. Even though I knew I would get it taken, I'm like, I'm not going to. I got to take an ass whooping to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The good thing out of that was I learned how to fight. The bad thing out of that was that I learned how to fight. Right. You feel me? Like, not only because the more I started winning fights in DFY, the more I started getting jumped. Then that's when I started realizing, like, all right, don't embarrass nobody when you beat them up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you're not going to be able to really hurt anybody anyway, so don't make them look bad. Like, get your shit off, protect yourself, but don't leave nobody with, like, cookies and shit. That's when I stopped punching people in the eye, start punching people in the mouth. I'm dead ass. Because that shit'll get you jumped. With motherfucker got to walk around with a black eye for a week. Yeah. Every fucking time he look in the mirror, him and his man's just thinking about coming in there and beating me up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The fat lip, they're no big deal. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what was the transition like? All right, you went from kind of like a group home setting at a young age. Mm-hmm. At what age were you when you got like sent to Sing Sing? You said you were
got you
15. No. You were 19, 20. But
I was like
19, 15, 16.
Yeah. I was 19 in 1999. That's when I went to Fishkill. I mean, not Fishkill. That's when I went to Sing Sing. That's when I was sentenced to 18 years to life for killing the person that I was. His name is Jared Cortez, a person that I was selling drugs with on the outside. So I had been released from the detention center as a juvenile at 17.
Okay.
So while I was there, I graduated. I had a job. So once I didn't have to fight no more, I could just do what I needed to do to get out of there, because then you could go home on home visits.
Okay.
So like I was going home on home visits, bringing back a bunch of weed, alcohol. Like I was learning how to navigate the system, but still doing me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then so like I got good at it. I got to be on some like work release thing where I had a job. They got me my license. I got a high school diploma, no GED. So like applying for college looked like I got my high school diploma like everybody else. They didn't know that I went from being a 7th grade dropout to graduating in high school in 2 years. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they just fast tracked me because they seen how smart I was. They gave me extra classes and I graduated mad quick. So I actually dropped out in 7th grade, but graduated a year earlier than any of the kids that I grew up with. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
So
when I got out,
what got you into selling?
so this is an interesting story too. This is actually, but let me ground it first in how I got out. Okay. When I got out of the detention center, the DFY for youth. When I got out of the detention for youth center, I came home with a mentality to like, I can do anything right now. Like, I can work. This shit ain't nothing. Because I had a job when I was in there, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and I had a license. I came home. I got a car. I'm like, man, I can do all of this shit. I'm changed. I'm good. Mm-hmm. But I went right back to my family, and none of them were changed. You feel me?
Okay.
And like, I was still ultimately a child who had never really processed anything. I just thought I figured it out because I found a way to navigate the system, never to work within the boundaries of what society thought was acceptable, but to do me despite the fact that those things were always limitations. You know what I'm saying? So I'm circumventing. That's how I grew up, learning how to circumvent systems and be successful as it. So when I came home, I'm thinking, tag that with some hard work and willing to do the jobs that other people aren't willing to do, and I'm going to be successful. Mm-hmm. But the influence of your environment, particularly the interpersonal relationships, they have a way of causing us to step back into old coping mechanisms and old ways of behaving. And sometimes we just don't even know a new way. And so when we're confronted with a problem that we were actually removed from while we were incarcerated, now we're confronted with it again, but we've never learned how to deal with it.
Yeah.
We wind up reverting back to that one thing that still made us feel powerful, and that's like being violent or destructive, or for me, that's what it was, like lashing out and being like, well, if the world ain't gonna love and respect me the way that I needed to, then fuck it. Like, I will burn it down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So moving back in with your folks, with your family, actually kind of made things worse in a sense.
Yeah, well, what it did is it highlighted the fact that the way when I was released, what like my experience after being released from juvenile detention is that, hold on, I don't want to say this. Okay. What it proved was that the way that the state chose to deal with what I was going through as a child was not meant to address the harms that were happening to me as a child and help me to grow into a healthy adult, but instead to remove me from their public school of education so that I wasn't disrupting other people's things and put me in a place where I would not be harming any of their status quo things that I'm constantly lashing out against.
Gotcha.
You feel me? And so they just put you over here, and then they in a controlled environment set you up like, look how successful you can be. But they're not talking about what the relationship is between you and your mother, really. Like, you know what I'm saying? And what's the relationship between you and your stepfather or your brothers, or like what kind of things are going on in the household that you're then going to return home to. The only thing that they tried to do was get me to not go home. They were like, we can get you a scholarship to college. You're so smart. And I'm like, man, I just want to go home. And like, I've been here for over 3 years, and like, I'm different now. I'm grown. Even though I was still young, I felt like graduating high school and having held down a job for a year and like been able to do all the things that the system expected of me and still be doing me. Like, I felt like, oh, I got this. I'm going to go home and everything's going to be good. I'm going to live a great life. And it was like, not even 18 months later, I caught 18 of life.
So we're going to get back to that. So the system basically saying at that time, and I think still to this day and age, it's getting a little bit better, but the system did not give you the information and the answers to the problem that you were dealing with, which was like the home, relationships with your parents, whether it was communication, whatever it was. They didn't provide you with the answers that you needed. They didn't provide you with that solution. Their whole thing was just remove him from society so that he's not being a disruptor in our program. But the social changes that you needed, they didn't provide for you.
There was no alternatives to violence project working within the detention center in order to teach like young people at risk of violence, how to deal with conflict without resorting to violence. Like, there was none of the stuff that I later seen in prison where people were showing me how to be tough without having to hurt anybody. Like, I literally learned in DFY, the only way you will ever show people that you tough enough to survive is if you're willing to hurt them.
Right.
If you're not willing to hurt people, you are going to get run over, and that's it. And as much as you want to, you don't. I never ever wanted to hurt nobody. Like, I remember being a kid, and we used to get into a bunch of like group fights with the kids from Yonkers because I lived in a part of the Bronx that was on the borderline. So McLean Avenue was like Yonkers here, Bronx here. So they're like tagging up over here. We're gonna run them down or whatever. I was a kid that was always willing to fight, but I ain't never really want to hit you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll get in there with you or whatever, but like, and I'll swing, I'll hit you or stuff, whatever, but like,
that wasn't your heart.
I wasn't like trying to knock you out or what, like, I might have swung. I was just going through the motions, and I was willing to always put my body on the line to be out there. Like no amount of damage that you could do to me is going to prevent me from standing on my square. You know what I'm saying? But I never wanted to push anybody off of theirs. You feel me?
Yeah.
Until I got older. Until I started realizing that, like, if you don't push other people off your square, they're gonna think it's their square. You know what I'm saying? And then, not to say that I still espouse that, but it started in the detention center. Whereas I could have been learning, like, if you get a hug and if people tell you valid and if people say that you should be safe and you should be fucking well fed and all of that stuff, like,
or even a better way of dealing with the confrontation.
Right.
Like, they wasn't teaching that.
I think this goes to what you're saying reminds me of, like, what does it take to be a credible messenger? Right? I hear this credible messenger is at the heart of the work that I do out here now. And I hear it like used loosely. It's like anybody can be a credible messenger. And it's like linguistically, yes. But in reality, if you cannot imagine what it must have been like for someone to go through what you know they went through, then you can never be a credible messenger for telling them what it is they should be doing with their lives.
Right.
Because if you can't even imagine what my life is like, how should I take advice from you on to do it? So, like, when we think about what does it take to be a credible messenger and who it is that can deliver that message that something else is possible, the truth is none of the staff at the detention center were even capable of delivering a message that something else was possible. You know what I'm saying? I've been hearing that shit from people that I'm like, you don't know shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have no idea what's going on. And you telling me all I gotta do is show up. Like,
There's no validity in it. So, briefly tell me, how did you get into the drug game? And then what led to
all right, check this out.
Crime?
So, I'm home from the DFY for about 3 months. Not even. It's still summertime. I got out right after the graduation in June of 1996. It's still summertime. I go to a party, and as we're leaving, the only kid that I know, I'm leaving with him and his girl. I get in the backseat of a car. As we're about to pull off, somebody reaches into the front seat and starts choking my man out. He's in the front seat. It's just choking him out. He's like, I'm going to kill you. This guy is like super drunk. I don't know who he is. He's kind of big, but like at the time, I also have been like, I have been fighting big, tough motherfuckers for years now. Like, I'm not scared of anyone, period. So like, I jump out the car and I yoke him up just to pull him away. Like, I don't really want to fight this guy or anything, but like, he was really coming at my man in there, and I'm just trying to get him off. And so, like, I put him to sleep. Boom. And then they spun off. They leave, right? And he's waking up, and he's like, where's my chain? Where's my chain? So when they was tussling through the window, my man had snatched his chain. Okay. Supposedly by accident. Hopefully, I don't know what it was, but, like, I don't think... Anyway.
He got a chain snatched.
My man snatched his chain while they tussling, right? So now this guy is spazzing out. Where's my chain? And the lady comes back, his girl comes back to pick me up. She dropped him off up the hill far and then came back to get me, like, because his ass was scared. He didn't want to come down there and get beat up.
So
like,
they bounced on you.
But it's not. I feel no betrayals, any of this. Like, I stepped out of the car. I did what I was doing, And I know, so you got to know that when you with people, they're not really about that life. Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I know this guy is not about that life. There's no reason why this dude needs to be coming over there, grabbing him by his neck, like grandstanding in front of everybody, acting like he a tough guy. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This is somebody that you could have just talked to crazy and gotten your point across. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, but in any event. So I don't feel no type of way, but they come back. They pick me up. This guy's got a garbage can. He's trying to hit her car. I'm trying to defuse it. I'm like, I'm going to get your chain. I'm going to get your chain. Whatever. I get in the car. We go to leave. We get pulled over. I got a nickel bag of weed on me. I got one blunt left for the night. That was for the end of the night. I was saving it. We were out all night. I'm saving this one till I go home.
For anybody that don't know, in this day and age, a nickel bag of weed is $5 worth of weed. They don't sell that anymore, man. It's like 20s and 30s now, as I heard.
There's you go by grams and all of that shit. Yeah, but a nickel bag of weed. I had one blunt's worth of weed on me, and I got arrested for possession of marijuana. Okay. And now, so one of the times that I had escaped from DFY, I stole some shit or broke into a car. I don't even remember which one it was, but I copped out to like possession of criminal stolen property or something while I was in DFY. It didn't even affect me, but I got put on probation. But because I was in DFY, I never had to go see a probation officer.
Right.
But when I got out, I was on probation.
Right.
So now when I got the marijuana charge, they violate me on probation. They put me on house arrest. So like I'm working this whole time. I got a good job at a deli it's a family-owned deli. I really like the family, the husband, the wife, the kid, the other people that work there. Like I actually like going to work. I'm like getting to know my customers, making sandwiches and shit. And one night the phone goes out, something happens, and all right, I'm just gonna be honest. I left to go get a pizza because I was starving. I ordered a pizza. They said it'd be there in 30 minutes. I waited an hour. I'm like, yo, where the fuck is the pizza? They're like, oh my God, we forgot about you and we're closing in 10 minutes. If you come pick it up, it's free. I'm like, bitch, I'm on house arrest. I can't come pick it up. Why you think I ordered this shit? They're like, well, we don't know what to do. I'm in a house with zero food. You know what I'm saying? I'm starving. So I tried to go real quick. Man, they come kicking my door down in the morning. Where were you? And I'm like, man, look, man, I was hungry. I just went to go get a pizza. You know what I'm saying? Well, this is what happened. You can even call the store and ask them. They were supposed to deliver it. They were like, nah, you locked in for 2 weeks. You can't leave the house. I'm like, what? Locked in for, what do you mean? I got to go to work. We don't care about you going to work. Yeah. You told you got a curfew. You weren't supposed to leave the house. You left the house anyway. Now you locked in for the next 2 weeks. Take it up when you get to court. And I was like, I lost my job, bro.
Yeah.
So I went to court and I said, Your Honor, I fucking plead guilty. Take this probation off of me. Like, I got a probation in lieu of a sentence of incarceration.
Okay.
Give me that in incarceration. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna give me 90 days in the county jail? I don't care. Like, I can't do this house arrest and I can't have them. Like, there was mad times when they just walked right up into my mother's crib. Like, they owned the joint. Like, I came downstairs one time. This woman was in the fridge. Like, she was getting a drink. Talking about she checking to see if there was alcohol. I'm like, come on, you can't just do that.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I plead guilty. They let my 17-year-old self fucking plead guilty. They give me a lawyer right there. Obviously, there was no consultation. They let me go to jail, right? So I go to, I got sentenced to 90 days in jail. And while I was in jail, I met Jared Cortez. I knew him. I'm not going to say I met him. He sold weed. He was from the Bronx, a little bit further down. I think he was from River Park Towers. Living up in Dutchess County by me. So I kind of knew who he was. I didn't really know him. But he was in jail at the same time, and he was the plug. He had all the links. He had all the weed, but he wasn't never trying to loose nothing. He was always like tight with it. He'll sell you a nickel bag, but he won't let you make $1. You feel what I'm saying? So and I never had a way to get in with him anyway. I didn't really even care, to be honest with you. I knew who he was, didn't care, but we got in there. I started talking to him and shit. The whole house hate him. The whole house wants to kill him. So I'm like, I seen it. I'm not gonna lie. I seen it as an opportunity, like I would have did in DFY. I'm gonna hold this kid down because he really don't want the smoke. You know what I'm saying? Like he acting like he tough, and because he's kind of got some size on him. He look tough, Puerto Rican and all of that. Like I can make his little face look all scary and shit. But at the end of the day, he don't want none of the smoke. You know what I'm saying? So like I start like fake holding him down, and I'm like, yo, nothing's gonna happen. Also, I knew one of the kids that was in there had just got sentenced to 7 years for a gun. And at that time, we was young and adolescents. He was like, you just got sentenced to 7 years. You were going away for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So he was like the OG in there. Like everybody was like, oh my God, you don't got nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yo, this is my man. Like if anything happened, like I gotta hold him down, bro. Don't let me get done dirty. You know what I'm saying? Just like there's gotta be a fair one, whatever. I don't care how many people we gotta fight. But it got to be fair. Like, you know, he's like, nah, that ain't even going to be like that. I literally diffused the whole situation. And then Jared went and did something else. Because then he started being emboldened because now he was safe in the house. And then he started acting up. And then he pulled the stunt. And he left me in the house. Now I'm in the house having just held down the motherfucker who pulled the stunt in the house to get out after having done some shit that knows he was going to get his ass whooped for. You feel me? And now I'm here. And they're like, everybody's looking at me like, you got to cash that check. Yeah. And I'm like, whatever, let's go. Which one? Who won it? And they were like, go ahead.
My fault. So how long were you and Jared in there together? How did y'all meet on the outside?
Got you. So we were in the house together for about 30 days. Maybe 3 weeks. Maybe 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I made not even a full month because I only ended up doing 45 days. I was sentenced to 90, got out in 45.
Okay.
I spent like the last half of it without him in the house. You know what I'm saying? So like, and there were still lingering animosities, even though after I fought like 3 people, there were still other people that was like, why are we letting him live here? Because really the person that I was cool with that had the clout in the house had left. So now I'm not really connected to none of these people. They respect me because they know you're not just gonna run me out. But at the same time, they're like, why are we letting this dude live here? Like, send him to the other side. Yeah. Man, what the fuck? His man over there. Why he over here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, in doing all of that, when I got out of jail, Jared wanted me to sell drugs for him.
Okay.
So Jared was like, so now he's like checking for me. And I'm like, I don't really need no weed. Like I got my man that I go to. At the time, I was a middleman. I knew 5 people that smoke weed. You want a quarter, you want a quarter, you want a quarter. I charge you like $30 extra for each one. And I wind up getting an ounce for myself and selling the ounce to the people that want it. That's like how I would make ends meet for weed, right? So like I already got somebody that treat me good on an ounce level and shit like that. If the person ain't trying to give me pounds, I don't give a fuck. But I wasn't even really thinking about pounds or nothing. This dude pulled up at my crib with like 5 pounds and it's like, just give me $1,000 each for him. And I'm like, I'm thinking that it's not even a good deal. But at that time, I'm like, oh my God, this is the most weed I've ever seen in my life. I love it. And I'm like, I can easily make way more than $1,000 off of each one of these. So I make like $1,500 off a pound selling dimes. Yeah, see, this is a problem when you get to reflecting on the past so much and then articulating the significance of all the things that you've been through in order to get where you are. Sometimes you lose sight of, just like we was talking about earlier, right? Like being present. Like, why we here? Am I really here to tell you about my childhood or like my transformation in terms of so anyway, the short story is that I met the person that I wound up killing while I was in the county jail on a misdemeanor 90-day sentence for misdemeanor possession of marijuana. And while I was there, we became friends. And then when I came home, he wanted me to sell drugs for him, selling marijuana for him. And so like our relationship was our friendship, which I considered us to be best friends for a long part of the time that we were like partnered in doing crime or whatever, however you want to call it. Like I thought we were good friends, but at the end of the day, we might have just been more like business than I thought. You know what I'm saying? I'm someone that can easily mix business with friendship because I want everybody to like me and I want to be on good terms with everybody. But I also want to be myself. You know what I'm saying? So that relationship soured about a year into it, maybe a little bit less. In 1998, our connect in Washington Heights started throwing us cocaine. So like he used to buy 10 pounds. I would get like 3 of them at a marked up price. But he'll buy 10 pounds and then he'd bring it back and he would call the plug and be like, yo, because they would give us, so he would buy us 10 pounds and it would come in big ass chunks to the point where they couldn't even weigh it. So we would get back, we'd weigh it. Sometimes it should be 3 pounds over, no matter what it was. This dude always called them back and said it was a pound or 2 short. Every single time. They didn't care. They hit him every time. At some point, they started not wanting to give weed, and instead, because that's how we used to get our bottles of hydro. They would make up for it in hydro. Here's 20 bottles, right? They started giving us cocaine. And then cocaine money just is a lot different than marijuana money. It comes so much faster. Like I make what it would take me a week to make, I would make in like 2 hours and I'm ready for re-up tomorrow. Like it's usually a 2-week thing. Like I'm going down to the city 3-4 times a week now, you know? So yeah. I'm not going to talk about like why I took another man's life.
Yes.
That narrative.
You wound up taking his life.
Yeah, that story is deserving of its own space.
Yeah.
In so much as like one of the things that I learned in prison, like, is that, and really it was through going to the parole board multiple times. So I was sentenced to 18 years to life, but I wound up serving 21 years. I went to 3 parole boards before I got out. And one of the things that I realized in going to the parole board was that what happened is not just my story. Like my story, a part of my story includes the ending of someone else's story. And that person's story cannot be told by anyone else. No one else was there. There's no one that can account for how this person died or what happened in the time between when they died and when they found them. Nobody knows any of those things. So no one except me. I'm the only person that knows that. And so one of the things that I realized is that intricately entwined with my story is the story of someone else who ended. And then I have to, if I'm going to tell my story, like I have to tell his story too. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I'm not going to get into like too much of like why things got to a level where someone can die off a decision, that only takes a split second to make.
You sold drugs, sold weed, sold cocaine. Hindsight, we know now that takes lives if used improperly. It can take lives. But then you also took a man's life. You're doing a program now. It's actually your business. If you have a 501c3, it's called After Incarceration.
It's a fiscally sponsored, community-based organization. And we are fiscally sponsored by the Movement Strategy Center, which is located in Oakland, California, which is also like the heart of restorative justice work in this. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but a lot of really great restorative justice work comes out of Oakland, California, and that's where they're based.
Okay. So right now you're really focusing on restorative justice, restorative reentry. I noticed, I want to read something from your website that really stood out to me, and I would like for you to talk more about it. You said restorative reentry is an opportunity to introduce people to ideas, to grapple with the significance of those ideas as a community, and empower each person to pursue a life full of purpose. Talk about purpose, and why living a life of purpose is important for you, and why living a life of purpose is important for you. And then the second question is, when did you decide to live by that?
Okay. So for me, living a life of purpose means, how can I put this? Because all right, so like that copy edit is like 2 years old. If I were to revise it now, if I were to rewrite it now, I would say I would use the word passion instead.
Okay.
Because one of the things that we believe is that when you combine your passion with your ambition for better, that you come up with a work that's not just like living, right? Working to live, but you then develop a way to find life's work. What is your life's work? So I would say that for us, purpose is about finding your life's work so that you can work and make a contribution to the community that you come from or go to, and anywhere you go. What what we try to do when we hold space for restorative energy, what we try to do when we hold space for restorative reentry is to kind of disrupt the ordinary flow of things in a capitalist way out here, right? Because many people are intent in spending their time working to make money and not working to make meaning. And so like we feel like there's a way that if you can fully reclaim your humanity and stand on your humanity as the place from which you go to work and be the human being that you are while you're at work, that then you can create a life that's full of purpose. And so that no matter what you're going through, it's not something you gotta go through. It's something you get to go through. It's something you get to learn from and you get to experience, because things have meaning that only we can invest in them too, because that's the other part. So like it's not for me or anyone to determine what anyone else's purpose is.
Right.
Like that's an internally defined thing that I feel like people should follow their passion in order to find their purpose, because that's where sometimes we try to use our purpose and then be passionate about the thing that we're purposeful about. But I think we should be purposeful about the things we're passionate about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I found that for me, I was going through like for years, like I'm 40 now. For years, I'm telling you, like in my 30s, I was just trying to figure out like, yo, what am I supposed to do in life? Like, why am I here? Right. And when I figured out or came up with what my purpose is, I've been able to get through hardships. And they don't even seem hard. What would have seemed hard 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it doesn't seem hard because it's like, yo, this is my purpose. This is what I'm here on earth for. And so when I wake up, I'm working towards it. And then I just started doing research on like purpose, started reading books, A Purpose-Driven Life, just started listening to like Dr. Miles Monroe. He talks about purpose. Napoleon Hill talks about purpose, Earl Nightingale. And the one thing they say that everyone who is successful lives by is they have a purpose in life and they work hard towards that purpose. And so now your purpose is what?
Wow. That is something that, I don't know what my life is full of purpose in many different ways. So my life, the purpose in my life has multiple layers.
Okay.
All right. I think here's what I want to share, right? Because I would have never been here doing the work that I'm doing all the way up until the day that I was released from prison. Because the whole entire time that I was in prison, I told people, they say, yo, Jose, what you want to do when you get out of jail? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make up my mind right now because I understand my access to information is limited.
Right.
And I'm not going to make a decision based on the limited opportunities that I know may be available to me. I actually don't even know if they are.
Yeah, that's
I'm not going to make, I said, but I would always say this. One thing I'm not going to do is anything that got to do with prison. Like, miss me with all them calls for packages, phone calls, none of that shit. I'm not going home to get on no political campaigns and be advocating for none of that shit, even though I know it's important.
Yeah.
Because I had given too much of my life to this shit already.
Yeah.
I've been in the system since I was 12 years old. The only thing that I thought I needed was to get the fuck away from the system and to distance myself from institutions as much as possible.
Okay.
Reclaim my agency and my autonomy in a way that was also consistent with my accountability. Because accountability is something that I learned in prison.
Yeah.
And something I refused to not act on when I come home.
Right.
So when I'm released from prison, it's April 2020. April 2020 is the beginning of everyone understanding that COVID is serious, right? So they let me out. My phase 3 transitional services was in the street. I didn't have none of that in prison. I went from being a lifer, sitting in Sing Sing. I was enrolled in New York Theological Seminary's master's in professional studies class when we got shut down. But I went right from there after 21 years in prison, and they just let me out and just said, okay, here, go home. Like, I didn't have any transitional services. I didn't have any real parole when I came home because everything was shut down. They would pop up once every like 3 months, just stick their head out the window, you good, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's but when the thing that happened with me, because of COVID, I could only return to my mother's house so all of my plans to go home and do something entirely different with my life where nobody knew me and I had a fresh start and I could just be the average Joe Schmo, white presenting person until you get to know me type shit, that all went out the window because I returned to the one place where everybody in the world fucking knew me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And where everybody in the fucking neighborhood could find me. Also, because the person that I killed's family literally lives less than 10 minutes away from my mother's house. The person that I killed has a twin brother that I literally was going home to a community where I could bump into this person any given day. Anytime I go to Stewart's or I go to Walmart or I go to Dunkin' Donuts, I could bump into the twin brother of the person that I killed. And that person may demand answers. Why the fuck you was his best friend? Why did you kill him? What the fuck happened? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what happened. I pled guilty. The judge gave me a list of answers to read at my guilty plea. It didn't include the story. It just included me admitting to the factual elements of the crime. I possessed a gun. I used a gun to shoot this person. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was no accounting for what I did. So when I was released from prison to this environment, to this neighborhood, I was acutely aware of the fact that the criminal legal system had never held me accountable to the people that I hurt. And the fact that they were still opposing my parole 20 years later was evidence that they were still hurting in some way. And that, like I said about me understanding the how my narrative is tied to his narrative, I come home thinking maybe I have the one thing that they need for them to be able to get closure. Maybe they just need to know what happened. Maybe they need to know why. Maybe they need to tell me how they feel about what I did. Maybe they need to hear it. Maybe they need something. And I'm the only person that can give it to them,
So does your organization, did you develop that out of the need to get that closure, or like because of the crime that you committed? Was it birthed in a sense because of that?
It's actually a collateral consequence. It's a ripple effect of a realization that I needed to do something different if I was going to allow myself to be held accountable to the people that I hurt. Because when you get out of prison, doesn't matter where you go to live. If you see someone who is deemed a victim of your crime, you can't have any contact with them.
Right.
So if they run up on you and want to know, yo, why the fuck did you kill my brother? Like, the parole tells me turn your back and run away or I'm putting you back in prison. And I was like, there's no way I'm turning my back on the brother of someone that I killed who wants to know why. Now that I understand that I am actually the only person that can answer that fucking question.
Okay.
If I turn my back on them in the supermarket or in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, then all I'm doing is reinforcing the static image of that 19-year-old kid who had killed his brother.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Who stood up in court and acted like he didn't care. I cared. I was just scared. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I did what they told me to do. You know what I'm saying? And not show emotion, to give limited answers and all of that shit.
So how does your organization combat that?
So we don't combat that.
Okay.
But what I did is when I came home, I had to realize how much time we got? 5 minutes? So, but when I came home, refusing to participate in the regular way that they would tell me that I have, it was inevitable that I was going to bump into somebody that I had hurt with my crime. Like, the kid lived there. Like, the whole community was full of people that knew us, knew him. And the whole time, the thing that that Nas said, and he said some shit, what he says, some shit, but he says, because when the pistol blows, the one that's murdered be the cool one. And that's the way to really be. You go upstate, you kill somebody in the hood, you go upstate, that person becomes a martyr in some ways. Not maybe martyr's the wrong word, but people start to romanticize who that person was, forgetting their faults and their flaws, and then all of your faults and flaws get amplified into some monster status while you sitting up in prison, like you treacherous and shit.
Yeah.
Even when people don't even know what happens. You know, so like there's any number of people that I could come out of my house with and have to talk to about that, about who I am. And this is where I'm gonna have to live, you know? So anyway, I sought out a restorative justice pathway for myself, for my situation. I'm like, we need to create a safe place. I'm willing to talk about this shit as much as it hurts, but I can't have it in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do. Somebody come in and do this, like hold space. I know there's gotta be people. And there really wasn't. There was nobody. But there was one organization called the Restorative Center based out of Newburgh, who the executive director had been thinking about what restorative justice could look like after incarceration or for people. So what we did is we used my situation as a pilot for a project called the Restorative Justice Clemency and Parole Project. And to where we tried to, like, for people who have already been sentenced and punished for the crime that they did, but want to make themselves available to be accountable to the people that they hurt if and when it's necessary. Because, you know, for the people that do return to the same place that they left, you're often returning with the perception that you're the person that you were when you left, when you were snatching change and getting high and stealing TVs or whatever. People don't trust you. You know, but when people get a chance to understand how your incarceration has changed the way that you view relationships, like for me, it was understanding that human relationships, if they're centered on respect and consent, can be all good. Like if we always respect people and follow consent, don't do things against people's consent, your relationships will be much healthier. And I feel like that's something that I grew up learning differently, where I learned to be like dangerous and violent and instead of loving and kind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So your program allows for the person who committed the crime and the victim or the family's victim to come together and
No.
All
See,
right.
that's what I'm saying. All right, I'm sorry. My organization was founded a year later. So I went through like an 6 to 8 month process for my personal thing. We had the district attorney that prosecuted me back in 1999. He was a part of like helping to reach out to the impacted people because, you know, you can't have contact with them and all of that. And in the process, part of the process that we develop is that in order for both sides to come together and to talk about what happened in the past from a place in the present, you have to first process what happened in the past to get to where you are in the present. A lot of times we talk about what happened 20 years ago as if it just happened yesterday. We still feel the same way we did when it happened to us 20 years ago, but really we don't. We just haven't had a chance to process those feelings and then process the feelings that have followed them afterwards. So like the affinity circle process before meeting with before the lack of a better word, victim offender dialogue. Before that, there's a series of affinity groups that helps each party, each side process what happened so that they can come together and talk about it from right now and not talk about it from when you were still feeling like that, you know, like a little girl who was helpless when their father was murdered and stuff. Like, no, you're a grown-ass woman now. Now you actually feel like someone who has lived all these life without their father.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you're not just stagnated in that old harm. So in the process of working out this project, it's like we do our restorative work and we root it in the elements. And so like a part of it is sharing stories about a time like you went swimming or a body of water or fire or earth, or a time in which you engaged with one of the elements is an integral part of the circle process that we do. And for me, like I didn't understand why it was important as I was going through it. And then there was like a question, share a story about a sunset or a sunrise. And I thought back to, I caught like 2 years in a box for a fake assault on staff in Kasaki. And I got stuck for like half of that time next to someone who banged on the wall all the time. He just had wild mental health issues and was getting no treatment and would just scream and bang. And so like the gallery learned to sleep when he slept. And that meant sometimes basically just staying up all night. So I had just been transferred from Cayuga S Block, where I was in a cell where the sun rose on the other side of the building. And then it set on my side, but my cell was on the ground floor and there were like 50-foot pine trees right in front of my gate. So it's like I literally was there for over a year and I never saw the sun because it rose over there and it was light outside, but I never seen the sun.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it until I told the story. I was like, when I got transferred to the single cell solitary confinement where they had a bunch of people with way more serious mental health issues, and I couldn't sleep that first night, I actually seen that sunrise in the morning. And I was like, wow, I had like this great view of a sunrise. And that's when I had realized like, damn, when was the last time I had seen the sunrise? Like, I was like, damn, that's kind of fucked up. But the reaction that I got from the community was like, damn, you shouldn't have had to go through that, man. Like, nobody should ever be so disconnected from the never see the sun. And it got me to thinking like, damn, how much of the like dehumanization that people internalize to survive in prison, how much do we forget we're not living the lives that we were supposed to be living because we were in prison and then come home, and it makes it more difficult because we internalize all of these, like, it's okay that we live on blacktop only and there's no trees in our yard and that we don't have like a place on this earth. Like there are places built for us to inhabit, but we don't have a place on this earth. That's like a misnomer. Like all human beings have a place on the earth. So the process helps you to understand your relationship to the earth and the fact that you actually like, and anyway, the process is designed. The process helps people to reclaim and reaffirm their humanity through their engagement with the elements and talking about it and stuff.
And it's for both the offender and the victim.
This is all in the affinity group section, right? So this is
unique.
Okay, I think the one thing that I want to put on people's radar is the work that After Incarceration is doing with the Alternatives to Violence Project in Newburgh. So working with the DCJS has a Project Rise. So we got $62,500 a year for the next 5 years to do conflict resolution and transforming power workshops in Newburgh. And so like that money is going to be used to pay directly impacted people to facilitate the workshops, to cover the expenses for travel, childcare, whatever the case may be. And it's also going to be led by Demetrius James, also known as Brotherly Buddha. He's going to be the director. He is the director of AVP Newburgh now. So we are really doing our best to take the things that we know made prisons safer for us and take them from inside and bring them outside.
Okay.
Because we always said, like, why didn't I get a chance to learn this before I went to prison? Like, I seen that in all my workshops and with AVP inside. And the truth is because there's not a bag in it. And in the outside, if you're not getting paid, then you're using time without getting the resources you need to survive. And so, like, we're going to be doing this so that people can get money while doing work that matters. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Back to purpose.
Is there a website?
So you can go to afterincarceration.org.
Okay.
Our website is not up to date or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
afterincarceration.org. They can go there.
Yeah. I mean, you can give it a plug and all of that, but it's not. Here's what I want to be honest with you about. I don't really want a bunch of people going to the website and fucking filling out contact me forms because I don't have the capacity to respond to people. And then I don't want a bunch of people feeling like they reached out and then I didn't say nothing. Because I already have had some of those complications with people. And it's probably more likely going to be somebody that knows me and then feels some type of way, like as if I was ignoring them on purpose. You feel me?
Gotcha.
Like you can look it up. But maybe we talk about that more on the next time we come.
Okay.
Maybe I'll have a more strategic vision for how I would want more
Gotcha.
exposure. Here I was just coming to chop it up. You know what
Gotcha.
I mean? I don't know if you've ever heard of the conflict triangle.
No.
So there's like a triangle, and each point is supposed to represent a role that is played in every conflict. And in every conflict, there's a victim, there's a persecutor, and there's a rescuer, right? Those are the 3 points on it.
Victim, persecutor, and rescuer.
And so, like, our personalities tend to find us in one of those roles more than other. Some people claim victim all the time. Some people are always pointing a finger, persecuting people. Other people are always jumping in, like, I can save you. I know how to fix things. Like, those are the roles that each of us typically, in my perspective at least, is drawn to one of them more than the other. And for me, for most of my life, it has been the role of a persecutor. I've been the one to point out, like, you're a piece of shit. Like, look at the way you treating people. Look at the way you treating people. How could you do that? How could you treat people like that? And one of the things that I learned is necessary in working in the nonprofit world is that when you hold philanthropy accountable to, like, anything, really, you can't do it by pointing fingers. You have to transform the persecutor role into a role of a challenger. You have to challenge people to live up to their own ideals rather than pointing out all the times in which they're not being who they say they are, right? Because that's one of the things that I'm big on, be who you say you are. And I always do my best to live in accordance with the way I talk and the way that I want to be, because the things that I say are the things that I want to be. I don't always live up to my own ideals, but what I tell you is the person that I am striving to be, and what I expect from you is to be held accountable to the things that I want for myself. But at the same time, other people out here, especially when the sensibilities of white supremacy or underlying kind of organizational things, you have to be gentle. You have to be kind. You have to be suggestive instead of just pointing out, like, this is fucked up. Let's fix it. I know you've been trying hard and we appreciate you and we can do better. You know what I'm saying? Like, so being able to transform from taking the role of, like, being angry about other people's actions into being someone that's just that is always trying to challenge people to live up to their own ideal version of themselves. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And by doing that, it reminds me to do it for myself and to remind the people that I'm around, help me, hold me accountable, because there's always going to be shit that's in my blind spots just as much as stuff's in other people's blind spots, you know?
Yeah.
And we just got to trust each other. That's the last thing I want to say about it is the work is building up the trust with people in relationships to the point that when there is a conflict, you can be honest with them. You can hold them accountable and challenge them to be better, or to coach them to be better rather than rescuing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jose, man. So we're going to have you come back for part 2. And ladies and gentlemen, Jose, choose your words wisely. What I got from you was choose your words wisely and live according to your words. So let's drop that in the bucket. Thank you for tuning in to Taste of Transformation. And we're looking forward to seeing you, hearing from you in the near future.